All right. Welcome to the Wealthy Weirdos podcast. My name is Ona, and today I have a guest. Shani is here with us today to talk about her journey. So I would love for you to just start off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's always a pleasure to go on people's podcasts and just share and talk and converse and share the magic that everybody has to offer this world. So, my name is Shani, and I am a luxury space energy clearer. So I work with a unique blend of classical feng shui, energy alchemy in people's spaces. I work with psychic intuitive, like I remote view into people's spaces, and I go in and I clear any stuck or stagnant energy in people's homes, specifically people's workspaces. And I use light language activations to clear and to kind of vibe up the energy and rewrite the programs in people's homes and workspaces. So I work with conscious entrepreneurs, creatives, new earth leaders, anyone who's here to shift the paradigm of the planet right now and has a conscious business or a way that they're bringing a service to the collective. And yeah, it's a really beautiful mission to be doing that in this world and helping people to connect back to the spirits of their space, back to the spirits of the land, teaching them how to be in reciprocity with the land, to be in reciprocity with the spirits, and to really find that peace and that balance and that harmony in your environment through the different methods that I'm using to really support them. And with the conscious entrepreneurs and kind of anyone who's on the path of creating this new earth leadership, I really believe, and what's going on in the world right now is a pure example of this, and I shout this from the rooftops all the time, and it just keeps getting confirmed, which is like, I want money out of the hand of corrupt leaders and into the hands of conscious leaders.
Yes.
And your podcast is called Wealthy Weirdos, and it's like you get to be wealthy being in your weird
Yes.
cringe self. And like, this is it, like, I thought I was mad, like talking to dragons and summoning summoning spirits and like clearing demons and entities from people's spaces, but it's the thing and it's my thing and I own it. And yeah, and to support, supporting new earth leaders to become wealthy is my jam. So
Amazing.
it's
There's just
perfect that you have a podcast called The Wealthy Weirdos.
I love that. There's just so much good stuff in what you said. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much I want to dive into. Um, First of all, I'll say that we have some things in common because I am also an acupuncturist. I went to school for that, so I learned a lot about the five elements and not very much about feng shui, but like a little bit, at least I got
Yeah.
some introduction to that. And did I hear you say that you do this remotely for the most part?
Yeah, I've done both. I've gone into spaces physically and done the work, and I've also worked remotely. And a gift that I have discovered from doing this work. So a gift that I've discovered from doing this work is that often I can actually remote view people's places. So like
Mm.
I'll with my eyes closed, I'll say things to them like, "Do you have like black and white tiles leading up to your house?" And I've never seen their house, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I've got like diamond tiles outside my house, black and white." Or I've like tuned into like specific things within the space, and like, how do you know that's there? And it just comes to me, and the often the objects in the house will actually talk to me, give me messages.
Mm.
And it could either be like objects in the house or ancestors in the house or spirits in the house that will communicate through me and give me messages to give to my clients what needs to be what needs to be moved and what needs to be shifted in the space. And it's really cool, very, very powerful.
That
um
is so cool. Yeah, I mean, this
yeah.
is a prime example of somebody being like, yes, I have weird gifts and
Yeah.
they get to come out here in the world. And I think what's so interesting about that too is that your psychic gifts are so different from mine. And that just goes to show
Mm.
how wide of an array that can be. Because it's funny when you were talking about I can see people's places and the spirits in them talking to me. And it's interesting because I remember I was with a friend and we were kind of tuning into things around us, but I don't like to tune into people unless they've asked me. So I have control
Mhm.
over that. I actually don't usually pick up on things unless I have said I'm no, this is what we're doing, and then I tune into them. But we were like playing around, so we were tuning into places. And he was like, yes, like tune into this, what's going on here or what's going on here. And he could pick up things about the building. And
Hmm.
I was picking up things about, I think, the regulars in that building, like somebody who was presently there. Suddenly I was
Hmm.
tuning into them. And I'm like, I think that's just what it is for me. Like I can tune into a person, but a place, not as much, like
Hmm.
maybe a little bit, but like not
Hmm.
really. And so I think that's really
Hmm.
interesting that you're kind of, because really a place is like a whole tapestry of stories and people. And I love that you talked about like reciprocity with the land too. Like it's not just this building, but like everything that has been in this space throughout time. That's so cool.
Exactly. I used to work before I started this business. I worked with people through ancestral healing, and I was a rebirthing breathwork facilitator. And so I was always working with ancestors and working with ancestral lineages. And having traveled so much in my life, I've been to so many places in the world. I've lived abroad for a long period of time. I've traveled to many, many countries. And essentially, what I was doing is known as grid work, although my partner and I like to call it grid play because we're like, well, let's play with the grids instead of work the grids. And essentially, like every piece of land has, not only does it have grid lines that are kind of overlaid or over the actual land itself, with which weaves different patterns and codes from ancestors that have walked there before, events that have taken place, conflicts, celebrations, conversations, deaths, births, and everything in between. So we've got land that has been walked upon by our ancestors or other people's ancestors, which or carries that residual energy, the same way that when I would work with people on ancestral healing, their cellular system carries the memories of their lineage. So does land. And we are not separate from that land. We are the land, and the land is us. And land will give you a reflection of what you need to learn in that time that you need to learn it. And so, having traveled to so many different places, I would find that the land would meet me with the lessons that I needed to learn at that period of time. And it would be like a pure black mirror really shining in my face, like a medicine ceremony, just showing me what I need to move through and what I need to heal and where I get to expand and grow. And for me, that was a very clear sign that this is the work that I'm meant to be doing, because wherever I would go, I would be automatically clearing the space and clearing houses and clearing. Even I was a teacher for many years before I did any of this work, and even when I had my own office space in a school or in a classroom, I would always energetically cleanse it and vibe it up and bring in plants and bring in my own like holistic cleaning products, and I would always be like taking care of my environment. And I think your environment is so powerful and has such an effect on people that they don't even know, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't know how much your environment is affecting you. And it's not just, on a practical level, like all the toxins and chemicals and everything that is, everywhere these days, and the products that you choose to use in your home. And then you've got, all the chemicals in your sofa and in candles and in your bedding and your mattress and everything like that. But even beyond that, we're talking about like a frequency that's within the space. And it's very, very interesting when I do go and when I do this work in people's houses, or I've worked with podcast studios, and I've worked on a cacao. I did a remote session for someone who has a cacao farm in Guatemala, and we were looking at like the energies of not just the land, but the people who come and work on the land and what energy they're bringing into the space, the buildings that were there when she took the place over, and just like there was so much going on underneath the surface. And I've worked with retreat centers, and then I've worked with people's homes, and so it's like a whole variety of different environments in which you really are dealing with the spirits of the land that were there before you. And if you don't know that, and you're not connected, and you're not in reciprocity with them, they can cause you some issues, right? Because they are living, breathing entities. And I think for me, the place in the world that I felt the most amount of reciprocity I've ever seen with the land is in the Sacred Valley in Peru, where the lineage of the tribes that live there. There's several different tribes that live within the valley, but their connection to the land, their connection to the mountains there. They give the mountains names, they pray to the mountains, they give offerings to the mountains, they give coca leaf offerings. They really revere and honor it, and they have a lot of celebrations for the land that
Mhm.
they actually even have a word for it in their local language, which is Quechua, which is Aini, which literally means reciprocity, like with the land. And so many cultures, especially here in the UK, where I've come back to for a bit, where I'm from, we really have lost that connection to the land. We had
Yeah.
it with Druidry and the Celts and you know the rituals and the whole we had a whole language just for trees, but it's been buried and disappeared under you know years and years of patriarchy and so many other things that we've been separated from that nature and therefore from our source and our divinity. And actually the more you can reconnect and find your allyship there, the more the land will actually support you. It's like a relationship. The more you have a
Wow.
connection and a trust with the space and the land, the more it's going to support you back. And that also goes for your home or your workspace or your office. I work specifically with office spaces as well for conscious entrepreneurs, how to create that into like a
Yeah.
prosperity portal where you're really bringing in good frequency for you and your clients. And it all has that same energetics. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, this is so cool. This is bringing up so much for me. I feel like my mind is blown. One of the first things that came to mind as you were speaking too is like where I am right now. So like I came here to finish acupuncture school and I haven't left yet. But at the same time, I think I had this transitory relationship to it, always kind of assuming that I was going to leave. But it's interesting because as you were talking, I really felt this this truth that I'm here for a reason, however long I am here, it's a special place. And so I'm actually in Gainesville, Florida, which you wouldn't think is a special place, but just a small town in north central Florida, but it's actually like um lined up with the pyramids in Egypt. Like it's on that same line. And what's really interesting is here in this area, there's a lot of spiritual healers and leaders, and there's these incredible crystal clear blue springs. And it just kind of brought to mind, how much the land here is giving us, and
Mm,
what can I give back. And it also made me think about how, for my clients, I'm taking a couple of my clients to Ireland next month, which of course I'm Irish and I've always felt a connection. I've only been there once, but there's this pull to, okay, I need to be on the coast of Western Ireland. And yeah, it's not my area of expertise, but listening to you talk about it, I'm like, yeah, this is the land is of course alive. Like it's communicating
mm,
with us and it's changing outcomes in the way we work with our people.
mm.
So I can imagine like just tuning into somebody's office or somebody's space, like how much that's gonna shift probably the results that they get for themselves and for their people.
100%. 100%. Like I've worked with, as I said, I work with conscious entrepreneurs and new earth leaders and anyone who's here to shift that paradigm. And but what I found by working with these people is that I don't just work with their workspaces. It has a ripple effect mostly out into their family life as well. And anyone who's got kids, I've actually supported them with things to do with their children as well, which has then helped their business because if they're not anxious about their child doing this one thing, or there's an issue with sleep, or there's an issue with the room that their children are in, or there's just, they're overwhelmed or cluttered or whatever it is, when I tune in energetically and help them to clear that, it can have like a huge impact. I had one client who is a career coach. So she goes into offices in central London, and she works with, her clients are people who are on the corporate ladder, and she's trying to, support them in confidence in basically like promoting their careers and boosting their careers. And she has young children. And when we went into her house, like remotely, I did a session with her online with this. And one of the things that came through instantly within her in her lounge in her living area, this is before we even got to the workspace, we she, I kind of guide people through the journey through their homes, even though I've never necessarily been in their houses or even seen their homes. And as soon as we got into the living room, I work in a way that I can also feel what's going on in my client's body. So I don't just see and connect with the space. I know that something's about to come up for them, whether it's grief or disconnect. My body literally starts to move and show me things, and I'll get messages around what it is that they're going through. And so when we walked into the living room remotely in the session, she started to cry, and I said to her, there's an ancestor in here that wants to talk to you. Who is it?
Mm.
And she said, I've got a picture of my father. He passed away last year. He's right on the shelf, like what I can see. And I said to her, have you ever put your coaching certificates in your on your wall in your workspace? Have you ever just like displayed your coaching certificates? And she was like, no, but that's so weird because my dad used to tell me that's what I should do. And I was like, yeah, like he's telling me
Wow.
right now, you still need to do that. And she went ahead and did that after our session. And within a week, she landed like a £20,000 contract that she'd been like waiting for.
Wow.
And beyond that, like, so that was like in her business, incredible. And then beyond that, her 3-year-old wasn't sleeping properly through the night. And there was a huge giant tree outside of the daughter's room. And I connected her, the daughter, like remotely with the spirit of the tree. And I shared with them, it's a spirit guardian. It's like the steward of your space. It's like guardianing the room for your child. And if we can connect the spirit together, she's not going to feel so scared to sleep at nighttime. And I encouraged her to take the daughter out to the tree and give it offerings. So she did. She messaged me, she said, I've taken my daughter out, and we gave wildflowers to the tree, and we named the tree. And she messaged me like 3 weeks later being like, you're never going to believe it, but she's literally sleeping through the night. I've never had an issue since. And
Wow.
it's beautiful because it's like on multiple levels, right? Like, not only did that just teach her daughter how to have a connection with the tree guardian, give an offering to the tree. Now she doesn't feel scared to sleep at night, and she's got, that affects,
Mm.
not just her business, but that's affecting her family life, which is going to then allow her to thrive in other areas. So it really does have like a ripple effect out into your family life, into your community life, into if you've got a partner, anyone who comes into contact with you. When you feel like rooted in your space, and you feel in reciprocity with your space, and you feel radiant, you literally can just like open that up and start magnetizing all the right opportunities and clients and people into your life that are going to be resonating on the same frequency as you. And quite a number of the people that I've worked with recently doing these sessions, there's been a similar theme of like, I am the CEO of my business. I'm doing well. I've worked with, really successful business owners, but they're like CEOs, but they're not fully embodying it. And there's like a tension point between that. And it's being
Mhm.
reflected in their workspace or their office space, or it's being reflected in certain areas of their family life that's being neglected. And when we do the shift in the energy work in the space, it's like boom, it completely changes and shifts the entire paradigm. Um, so it's really powerful because, as I said, it's not my work has always been, even when I did ancestral healing, like my real, mission point was there is like, this is for your lineage and your legacy. And in a way, I'm doing the same thing through this. Like, I'm still connecting with the ancestors, with the spirits of the land, and looking at the lineage, and then you creating a business that feels aligned and alive and wealthy and abundant and flowing and grounded and rooted and radiant, and then allows you to create that legacy, right? For the people around you, the people you're working with, your clients, as I said, your family, your friends, your partners, your community, the person who delivers your post, anyone you're in contact with, because it has that ripple effect. And
Wow.
that's the beauty of doing this work. It's not just, you're not creating wealth so that you can buy nice things. You're creating wealth so that you can create freedom out of a
Mm.
system that has you trapped. And that is when we want to get the money out of the hands of corrupt leaders and into conscious leaders' hands. This is like a real thing that we need right now.
Yeah,
like
very
like
much so.
yesterday.
Like yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I mean, there's so much there because, yeah, I absolutely agree. It's like we need wealth in the hands of actually compassionate people. And so, so much of what I talk about is removing the shame around that and just really claiming it and claiming our desires and claiming our gifts, right? And just really putting that out there. But it's so interesting, this idea of like it's almost like hearing you talk, it feels like part of what's happening there is this realization that the space that you're in and the land that you're on, like also wants to help you and like also
Yeah,
wants to support you. And it's just
totally.
about getting into that relationship. And I feel like it's serendipitous that you're here because I'm listening to you and I'm like, I feel like this is an area of weakness for, not weakness, it's an area that I've not
Mhm.
really looked at. I've always been kind of yeah, I was like kind of a transient person, I think, in much of my
Mhm.
life, but ultimately, I do have that Taurus moon and I really want to feel like I'm in a sanctuary and
Mhm.
I think that there's been a disconnect there, even as I've settled into places for like longer periods of time and I can be a bit of a homebody. I think that relationship that you're describing has always been something a little bit elusive to me that I've not really done that, but it did also kind of remind me of the simplicity of maybe just going in my yard and like offering and having offerings
Yeah. Yeah,
for
yeah,
that.
100%. I mean,
Hmm.
there are so many spirits, right, that just want to be offered to and acknowledged, and the same way that we do, and it's just about cultivating that relationship and finding that deep connection and that deep love and that deep reverence. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So in terms of like us, really embracing our gifts and making more money as a result for liberation, for our liberation,
Mhm.
for our community's liberation, for like all of that. Um, I'm curious about your journey into really claiming these gifts yourself and coming into this place where you're like, yeah, I can receive money for this and I can help people with this and I can, what was that journey like for you?
I mean, yeah, as I said, I was a teacher for many, many years and worked in abroad internationally for a long time in different countries, and I was always kind of like connected to lands, I suppose, and I always felt it. And I remember I lived in Singapore for a long time, and this is before I even knew what feng shui really was. But I do remember feeling like a sense of energy siphoning, and I remember saying out loud to people, like, I think they feng shuied this city to siphon the energy from people and make
Whoa.
the city prosperous. Like, I used to say that, I'm like, they're taking the energy from us and they're putting it into like finances. I can feel it. And this was before I knew, this was way before I knew I had psychic gifts, way before I knew I was able to vision and connect and see and feel and know and just yeah, work in multiple dimensions with, dragons and spirits and fairies and all the rest of it. Like I had no idea really that I had no idea about myself at that point that was going to be like a path for me. I was still very much in like the matrix box in the systems. But I remember thinking that even then, and I also remember in Singapore like the reverence for the ancestors, like the little altars and the offerings and the shrines that are everywhere, and they offer incense and oranges and prayers, and like it's around, like it's in the culture. And it's probably the first time I really experienced that. Um, Although I wasn't like fully connected to it then. And then when I left Singapore, I moved to another country that's like part of my home heritage and my roots. And it's a land that is very uh it's got a lot of energy and a lot of vibration. And there is where I had like my real spiritual awakening, and like all my psychic channels just blasted open. I was super connected to like my ancestors and my roots and my lineage, and everything just started to come in like like really really quickly. And at that time I still would say that I was more deeply in my healing journey. And so at that point, I actually trained. I went to India and I trained to be a breathwork facilitator. And I was doing my ancestral healing work and I was running women's circles. And that was kind of like that was my first business that I ran for 5 years, traveling around Central and South America in the last 2 years. And I was still running that business. There was a point we got to Mexico, and there was a point where we were staying for quite a while in a house called Casa Espiral. It was a round house and it was based on the five elements. and they had like the features of the five elements within the house, and it was this round house. But every time I walked in, I was like, this house could be really nice, but like something is off, like something is wrong, like in here. Like I wanted to like constantly move stuff around, and I was just like, every time I walked in, I was like, why is that there? No, 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 no. Like energetically, the elements don't seem to make sense, and why is the water opposite the fire? And I don't like, and I didn't know, but I knew. And then God literally sat me down and was like, listen, you need to stop running your business. I had a
Mm.
podcast as well that's still out on Spotify called The Liberated Women. I like it was like, stop your podcast, stop your YouTube channel, stop your client, like finish off with your clients you've got and put it all down. Don't continue on Instagram. Don't like I had WhatsApp, I had a community, like put it all down.
Wow.
Okay, well, what do I do now? Just wait and I'm gonna show you. Like I'll show you. Okay. So I waited and I waited and I was kind of just like sat in the void for a really long time, in fact, almost a year. But whilst we were still in that house in Mexico, like I would get messages of being like, put Netflix on and watch Selling Sunset. And I was like, Selling Sunset? Like I love watching property shows. I don't like the drama. I'm not interested in like, all the drama between the agents, but I love watching the houses and I love watching like what they create in those spaces. And there's something about the luxury of it that like really attracts me. And so I started watching, Selling Sunset, selling the OC, selling this, selling that. And then I went to California to visit my best friend who lives in OC, and I was just like, whoa. And like it just kind of kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And then we traveled a bit more around Mexico. We went to Guatemala. We were in Guatemala a little while, and the energy of the land in Lake Atitlan was so intense. And I had a horrible time there. I really didn't enjoy the energy of what was going on there. But like from the minute I arrived on the land, I literally clocked the spirits of the lake and the land, and they did not like that I was there. Like they were like, oh, we see her seeing us, and she knows what we do. And it was that same siphoning energy. And there's like spirits in the lake that literally siphon energy, like sirens, like sirenitas. And it's like serpentine, but it's not like benevolent, it's not a good energy. And it's really reflected on the land and the way that the locals are interacting with the west. It's just there's a lot going on. And I kind of felt, despite like the wisdom of the Mayan culture there, I just felt like there was a real lack of dishonoring for the land,
Mm.
even from the locals. And
Mm.
it really like started me thinking. And I woke up one morning in Guatemala and I said, we were going to go straight to Peru from there. And I said to my partner, we have to go to Colombia. Like we have to go to Colombia. I don't know why, but we just do. We have to go via Colombia to go to Peru. Like there's a reason we have to go, but I don't know what it is. It was just like an intuition I woke up with one morning. So we went to Colombia, and whilst we were in Colombia, um, I had like a real deep sense of homesickness. Like it was like a
Mm.
depth in my being that wasn't like, I'm not homesick for home for like the UK. I have a house here. I wasn't homesick for my actual house. Like it was like a depth of grief of like, where is my home? And I think probably like you said that had quite a transient life.
Mm.
My ancestors come from all over different places, and we've always been, I'm Jewish, so like my ancestors have been kicked out of many different countries and had to find their way to new lands and never really been fully welcomed.
Mm.
And then beyond my kind of earth family, my lineage or my star family, it's the same. Like I've just been kicked out, kicked out, kicked out, and
Mm.
like wars and having to find new homes and never really knowing where that home was, and always kind of like subconsciously been on the hunt for it or on the search for where home is. And that's really what that homesickness was showing me. And I was feeling so much grief. I walked into the town where we were staying. The house we were renting in that town in Colombia was so riddled with entities. I literally, like, I'd walk in the house and my whole skin would go like
Oh.
prickly and hot. And we were looking after some cats and they were insane. I've never seen, I love cats and I'm a real cat person. Like these cats were going insane in the house all the time. Like I was like, the cats can feel it too. Like there's just bad energy in here, bad spirits. And I was constantly cleaning, and when like energetically cleaning. And then I went into town and I found this cafe. I was kind of following my nose, found this cafe, And the woman who was working in there was also from the UK and happened to have some friends in common. She basically said, I was telling her how I was feeling and what I was thinking about doing. And she said, "Have you ever heard of interior therapy?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" And she was like, "Well, it's kind of like interior design, but you coach your clients, or you're not a therapist, but you work with them, like coaching them, or you support them in any transitions. Maybe they're going through a divorce or someone passed away, or moving house, whatever it is." And it kind of sparked an idea. It wasn't like the thing, but it sparked a light bulb for me.
Mm.
And from a distance, I could also feel my house in the UK was like not in a good space, like energetically. And my partner was like, "Let's sit down and tune into your house. What's going on?" And I could just feel it, like I could feel my house like talking to me. And it just kind of kept on, all these little signs just kind of kept creeping up and creeping up and creeping up and creeping up. And then we got to the Sacred Valley in Peru. We kept traveling around Colombia. We got to the Sacred Valley in Peru, and the minute I landed on that land, I was like, this is home. This is it. I found it. This is home. I have never felt so deeply connected and in love with a piece of land in my life. And I know it felt the same way about me. Like I was so held. And in Feng Shui, well, the Sacred Valley is surrounded by, incredible epic mountains. And in Feng Shui, mountains are known as backers. They're known as like your support. So if you have a house that's got mountain energy behind it, ideally an actual mountain, but if you don't have an actual mountain, like mountain energy, so like tall trees,
Mm.
fencing, anything that is like supporting the space, you can feel it. That's why we have backs to our chairs or the headboards on our beds, sofas, things like that. This is like mountain energy in feng shui. And so when I'm in the mountains, I feel that sense of like, yeah, protectorship and guardianship. And then, all of the spirits that are alive on that land. And as soon as I landed there, I was like, this is it. It's feng shui and it's space clearing. And then I just started telling people that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And within like literally a month, I was just getting clients. And I did study classical feng shui, don't get me wrong. Like I am trained in it. But yeah, with the energy space clearing, it just came to me intuitively from the work I've been doing and all the grid work I've been doing. And people started hiring me, and I was like, shit, like I can do this. Like this is the thing. I've been doing it for free as I travel all my life. Here I am actually like bringing that gift, and charging people for it, and people were willing to pay and getting so much out of it that I was like, well, this is it. Like it's only going to get better from here. Um,
Wow.
and it feels very embodied because I lived through it. And I think, the previous business I had was very much focused on people who were in, pretty deep trauma, and where I'd been in that place. And I think God was just like, right, you're done with that now. That timeline's finished. And now you're here to expand people. You're not here to like
Mm.
go, you can still go deep because I go deep, but like you're not here to like take them down into the trenches anymore. Like you're here to like kind of go a little bit in the trenches and then fully expand them. And I was like, that feels really good in my bones. So that was kind of like the next expansion of, I guess, my evolution of where I was going to take people as well. And it feels great. So
Amazing. It's like a soul calling, you know, that's
yeah.
what this sounds like. It really is just calling you. And it's so interesting because as you're talking about these different landscapes and what they do, throughout my journey, I've noticed I've been very drawn to like swamplands. Like I'm always like trying to go to these, like I'm in New Orleans or I'm in Florida or I'm like in northern Brazil. Like I've been in a lot of those areas. I'm like very, very drawn to them. Um, but weirdly, like actually just recently, I've had this like calling to go to the Smoky Mountains. I've never been. I'm not really familiar with mountains, but I'm like everything in me is like you need to go to the mountains. You need to like bring a client to the mountains. Which is just interesting to think about. Like perhaps there's some kind of synchronicity, I guess, between like the lands that I'm drawn to at different times in my life and like the things that I'm processing or going through or helping other people with.
100%. And there is astrocartography as well. I've got a friend who's an astrocartographer, and yeah, like the readings that she's given me about land are super accurate. And just looking at where
Mhm.
you're meant to be and what each land brings you. There are certain lands that are better for your career and your purpose, and there are better lands that some lands that are good for like family and raising children, and other lands that are going to bring up things in your relationships, and other lands that are going to help you heal, and other lands that are just generally like just not good for your health at all. Um, or your well-being. And it's very interesting, and I do really believe, like, because we're not separate from the land, like we get those lessons that we need at that moment in our life. And for me, like, the two, so when we were traveling around Central South America, the two places I liked the least, where I felt most activated but not in a good way, because I was having to like essentially fight off entities the whole time I was there, was Costa Rica and Guatemala, both of which are volcanic with
Mm,
a lot of water. So like the first place we started in Costa Rica was literally like volcanic, like the sea, the beach was volcanic beach.
yeah.
There's like fire and water, like so explosive, right? And in Feng Shui, you're not supposed to have fire opposite water. Like you're not
Right.
supposed to have your stove opposite your sink, right? Like
Mm,
they don't complement each other. Probably in acupuncture too, right?
mm,
You don't necessarily want fire and water as
right.
elements together. So it's interesting, and it was the same in Guatemala. You know, Lake Atitlan is just a giant crater lake surrounded by active volcanoes. It's I imagine if I went to Hawaii, I might experience something similar. You know, like anywhere that has like these active lands. Um,
Too
Whereas other
explosive.
people might get a lot from that activation. I'm someone that loves the two places we went to on our travels where I felt most at home were two mountain places, just
Mm,
surrounded by mountains. You know,
yeah.
very grounding being in the mountains. It's very anchoring. It's very, yeah, it's very these mountains, like I describe in English to me, I'm like, oh, I was like, the mountains are like G's. They're like super, like they're just present. They're like, yeah, I'm here. I hold you. I protect you. It's like a really divine masculine essence of just like, I got you. Don't you worry about a thing. I'm here.
Mm,
It's that feeling. And
that's
that's really
amazing.
powerful to be around. But for other people, that might activate them in all the wrong ways. They may feel like tied
Yeah.
down or too anchored or too earthed, and they need to fly free. So, we all have the land will give us the medicine that we need.
I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, it just feels really like, you're in your soul calling. You're changing people's lives with this soul calling.
Yeah.
So I love that you followed that and like the part of your story where you just allowed the void and like followed the instructions, right, of God, of your intuition and just
Yeah.
doing what you needed to do. Like that is just it's unfortunately kind of rare and really, really great when people do it because,
Mm.
it's hard to trust, I think. It's hard to trust, like, okay, this is where I need to be right now, and I don't know exactly what's on the other side, but I know that this is what I need to be doing right now. And I feel like one of the biggest barriers to that for a lot of people that I meet is like, I mean, not always, but like I think people are worried about money. And so I almost just kind of want to talk about money a little bit. Like pursuing your soul calling and helping people in this way, like were there moments that you were worried about the money? Were there breakthroughs that you had in terms of like stewarding wealth with your gifts? And I'm just curious about that end of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think everybody goes through their own patterns with money. I've definitely had like my own patterns, with like the main pattern that came through always for me, like ancestrally, is about hoarding, right? Because like, oh, I don't know when it's going to be taken away from me, sort of thing, and like my family literally, like my grandfather left when he was 16 from Bulgaria with like the shirt on his back and like a bag, like a lot of my family had that situation where it's like, okay, well, you've got to leave your house now and you've got to go. Like you're in danger, run. And so I think like all my life I felt that like, what if it's taken away from me? What if that feeling? So I feel quite privileged because I grew up in a house where my parents did teach me financial literacy.
Mm.
Um, and so, their version of financial literacy, which is not everything that I would want to learn, and I've gone ahead and learned it myself, but I feel lucky that like they instilled that value in me from a young age. And so I always felt like I had my own back, like the mountains. I was like, I can support myself.
Mm.
I'll be okay. Always somehow I would always land on my feet and be okay. Um, but I would say like when I was transitioning out of teaching, um I was talking to somebody about this on a podcast the other day, and she was in corporate, and she was, high flying corporate, and now she has a sound healing frequency business. And I said to her, like, for me, and this could, everyone's got a different level of nervous system regulation, but for me, it was like I went from full time to part time, and I did it like incrementally so that I could leave feeling secure and safe, as opposed to like some people will just take the leap and go, right, I'm quitting my job and I'm off, which
Yeah.
is essentially what I did when I traveled for the last 2 years. That's what we did. Um, but I made sure I was financially set up to do that. Like
Yeah.
I was never going to put myself in a position where I was unable to take care of myself. Like that was just never going to be an option for me.
Right.
And I think that's just like a mindset that was, or like a belief, I guess, that was installed in me from a young age from my parents of like, don't
Mm.
spend what you don't have, and like make sure you save for a rainy day. My dad's self-employed, so I think like that was always kind of instilled in me. But it was definitely difficult leaving a system. Like it was definitely difficult leaving like and I'd been a teacher for 17 years. It wasn't like a job. I'd been in a career for all my life, really, like all my adult life anyway. And so yeah, leaving like the security and the safety of that, but like yeah, also being out of like a system that didn't align with
Mm.
my values. So, like there was only so much you can do. And I think you have to follow what feels right for you and make sure that you've got something to back you up to regulate. You need to have your baseline covered, you need to have your needs covered. Like you can't be living out of survival. But for some people, they take the leap of faith and they go, screw it, let's go, quit my
Yeah.
job, wing in a prayer, and then within 6 months they're flying. It just depends on what's going on. So um, but I think, it's always a journey. When I started my first business, I did my first women's circle for free, and I was giving breathwork journeys for like £40 for like an hour and a half. And over time you just go, nah, like I'm worth more than that. And then you
Mm.
learn, like I think when you build a business and, especially a conscious business that's out of integrity, you you find those edges, you meet those edges within yourself, and that becomes part of the spiritual awakening, and it brings up things in you about like, you said talking about
Mm.
um helping your clients like to be seen and be visible and claim that, own their gifts and claim their gifts. And that's what I was doing with women before in their, claiming their liberation. And it's the same now. I'm just like, let's get you prosperous, because why wouldn't you? Like that, we can do so much good with that money. We can steward land, we can support our children, you
Mm.
know, I can then afford to be able to not have to work all the time and not have to send my children to school, and like all these things that I want for the kind of life that I want to lead. Um, and just knowing what's right for you and what's not right for you, and just taking it a step at a time. And everyone's got a different path, right? And everyone has a different nervous system and tolerance of what they can handle. So um
No, but I love that. Like,
yeah,
there's not one right way to do
not at
it,
all.
but, trusting that sense of like, I am gonna be okay, right? And finding, and yes, setting yourself up for success and all of that, but also, yeah, like you said, kind of trusting the mountain and knowing
Yeah,
that it's like, okay, it is okay for me to follow my intuition here. It is okay for me to like claim my gifts and to depart from the structures that I know I don't
yeah,
like, but maybe they make me feel safe, but
yeah,
it's time to do it a different way. Because I even see that with people who've already quit their job and they already have their own business set up, but inadvertently might structure it in a way that they don't like. But they're
yeah,
worried about, okay, what if what if I'm not as prosperous or whatever on the other side of this? And just kind of that reminder of like, we get to trust what's calling to us and how this
yeah.
medicine like wants to come through us. So I guess my last question would just be, if you have any like final words of wisdom for the other for the other weirdos out there who maybe are in that place right now where they're like, I'm going to bring these gifts forward more, I'm going to start stewarding more wealth, like any kind of last words of wisdom from you as the medicine woman that you are.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's that phrase that I said before, which is like, we need to get money out of the hands of corrupt leaders and into the hands of conscious leaders, because with that you really get to shift the paradigm, right? And the more that you are connecting to the spirits of your space, the spirits of your land, the more that you're in frequency and harmony. you know I've spoken a lot about my psychic work, but feng shui, classical feng shui, really uses in a very ancient system
Yeah.
of calculations. They call it the flying stars, and it's quite an in-depth and intricate system. And before it was called feng shui, it was called kan yu, which means heaven, earth. And it
Mm.
really is the art of bringing heaven to earth. And it's bridging the unseen realm into the seen realms and bringing form into matter, and unseen, energies and frequencies into this reality. And that is what you're doing. You are bringing, you had an idea, you conceived an idea, and then you've cultivated that idea. And sometimes I say to myself, like, oh my God, like less than a year ago, I was in Colombia and I had no idea. And like I felt homesick, and I walked in that cafe and that woman said one thing, and then it sparked an idea, and then I had this other idea, and then this other thing, and now I'm doing it. Like, wow, like literally, like I brought the unseen into the seen realms. And this is like the work. Not only do I do that work with my clients, like bringing the unseen into the scene and shifting their realities, but like I did that for myself from my idea, and like conceived it and went, I'm going to do something with this, and then just went ahead and did it. And it's like, you can do that. Like, you have the option to do that. And I think a lot of people in life think they don't have another way, or don't know another way, or have never experienced another way. But there are so many ways these days for you to get creative and to find your path, and be fully in your weirdo, and be fully in your cringe, and just own it. And people will like you because of that. Like, people will be attracted and magnetized to you because of that. And that's a journey in itself, like, to really own that and claim that, and let go of any shame that you hold around that. That's a whole other journey, but you can do it. Like, everyone is you're more capable than you think you are.
I love that. Oh, and I love
Also,
that all the unseen realms that you tap into. Like, I want more. I'm like, I'm gonna have
yeah.
to follow up with you after this. So
Yeah.
also, if people want to follow up with you, like, where should they find you? What should they do next?
Yeah, I'd be super. I love connecting with people. My main spirit animal is the spider. So
Mm.
I'm a weaver of webs. I love to weave. I remember in Singapore, this is again before I was like into my spirit, which I had no idea about what a spirit animal was at this point in my life. But I remember a friend in Singapore saying to me, Shani, if you had a superpower, it would be networking. That's what he
Mm.
said to me. Because I'm really good at like finding opportunities and putting people together and creating these webs and I've lived in so many places and met so many people. Um, and so, with that as my spirit animal as a spider, I do love to connect. I do love to create links and webs. So please be in touch. You can find me on Instagram at Roots and Rituals Interiors. So Roots and Rituals was born from the idea of as above, so below. It's in my logo of like, the more you're rooted into your space, like those mountains, the more ritual you bring in, and the more offering, the more radiant you become, and then you attract. So it's like that mirror of like, as within, so without, as above, so below, that bringing the heaven to earth situation. So you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on YouTube. I have a free Telegram group that you're welcome to join. um, I have a website that you can find me on. You can find me on Facebook. You can find
Oh,
me on
please.
Threads. I'm in multiple places. And I will be starting, I put my old podcast to bed. You can find my old podcast, The Liberated Woman, but I will be starting a new one that's more focused on these topics. So in the future, you'll be able to find me on podcasting again as well, which I love to do. So yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
if you want to be a part of like, have an insight into this work and into this world, I'm running a 7-day challenge called the Prosperity Portal. It starts on March the 15th. It's for
Ooh.
conscious entrepreneurs and new earth leaders. And it specifically looks at your workspace, your office space. And over the week, I do 3 live calls, and then there's a Telegram group in between. And I give you like things to implement in between the calls in your space so that you actually shift it in real time, not just energetically, but also physically. So, I ran it last time and people were sending their pictures of like before and after and what had changed in their space as a result, and it was magic. So, I
Wow.
will send you a link for that if people want to join. It's a really beautiful week-long journey. So you can
Oh,
catch up on
wow.
replays if you can't join live. So yeah,
That sounds amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
that sounds really good. I actually have one last question per that offer.
yeah,
Um, what if you're the kind of person that is just like even transient in how they work? Like I'm in the living room, I'm in the bed, I'm at the
yeah,
desk, I'm on the ground, I'm in the yard. Like,
yeah.
is all of that my office space? Like, does that still
I mean, it
apply?
obviously it depends on what you do, right? Like some people are
Right.
working outside, but this particular challenge does look at your specific, like the place where you would want to be known as like the CEO
Mm,
of your space, right? So for you, it
mm,
will probably be your office in
right.
terms of like how to create that into a room where you feel like you're fully in your authority space, and there's ways to do that using feng shui and the energetics of like setting up your space so that it is you are fully in control of like the space and then therefore your business and therefore like all the things that follow that. So it really looks at that in
Very
particular,
cool.
this challenge. It's very like specific on that.
Okay. All right. I love that. I mean, I do have a
Yeah.
desk. I'm sitting at it right now. So
Yeah.
it does exist.
It's a good start. It's a good start.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was like an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure. And yes, please go find her, get the links, and
Yeah.
hopefully we get this up before that challenge is happening so everybody can join that as well. So, all
Come
right.
and connect. It's just good. I like to, as I said, build the web. So do come and say hi and connect and drop in into my DMs.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in and see you next week.